All right, guys, we're back with another one. So here today we have something really cool, something you guys are going to want to get into. I heard about them through the uh, Kentucky Bourbon Festival, and I think you guys are going to want to hear about them as well. Today we have Greg Keeley with Larrikin Bourbon Company, and we are going to go over a couple of. They were gracious enough to send over some samples. We're going to go over those samples, and we're going to talk about their brand and everything they're doing, and I feel like they have a pretty cool story. So y'all need to stay tuned to this one. Without further ado, here's Greg. How's it going?
Hey, Randall, going great. Thanks, mate.
Yeah. I'm really happy you're here. I have paper down ready to take notes on all the cool stuff that y'all are doing. My buddy Doc Martinez was at the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, and he talked to you, and he actually got a card from you, and he told me to contact you. And so it's kind of like serendipitous that we are actually here together. It took a little bit getting this going because you guys are so busy doing what you're doing, and I love that the workload is making it to where you have to postpone little guys like me. So it's awesome. I love that. So what before you get into your part of the story, I did pour the bottled and bond bourbon. If you want to tell us a little bit about this, and then you can tell us
There it
about
is
your
right there.
brand. You can tell us about your brand, and basically one of the things I like to ask people is why. Why are you doing what you're doing?
I'm coming in again, guys, because we have another sponsor. Yes, we do. We have another sponsor, and that is none other than Texas Whiskey Festival. And if you guys don't know about the Texas Whiskey Festival, it is actually going April 12th, 2025 is when the festival is going to be. It's going to be in Bee Cave, Texas at the Star Hill Ranch. It is an amazing place. It's an old Western town looking thing. It's an awesome place to be. And I just wanted to tell you a little bit about the whiskey festival, because if you've been to any sort of whiskey festival, this one is that, but on steroids, because we're in Texas, right? We got to do it right. There's anywhere between 30 to 40, depending upon the year. Some people say they're going to come and they don't come, or more people come than you think are going to come. So 30 to 40 Texas based distilleries are going to be there, and only Texas based. That's where it's a little bit different from some of the other festivals. This is only Texas whiskeys, and it is really an amazing thing. You get to go from one tent to the next, talking to people like Iron Root, Balcones, Andalusia, Shire, all of those guys. You get to talk to everybody. Garrison Brothers is there. Everybody's there. Everybody and their dog is there. You get to go around and talk to all of them, try samples of their product. A lot of times they have special products just for the festival that they're releasing, a new product they're fixing to release or something like that. You'll get to try it before anybody else. So go over to TexasWhiskeyFestival.com and get your tickets to it now, because they have a VIP section where you get early access. You get special pours. If you're a VIP, you have a special wristband. You get a special pour. You get a cigar if you're a cigar smoker. And it's just cool bragging rights, And they also, on their website, they sell Glencairns and all kinds of stuff that you can buy for prep. And you can buy it, and they will give it to you at the actual festival. That way you can have a little drinking glass, a little wee Glencairn to drink while you're walking around. So make sure you go to TexasWhiskeyFestival.com and get your tickets today, because I guarantee you the VIP section will sell out, and you will want to be a part of that. So April 12th, 2025 is when it's going to happen. And I'm giving you a lot of notice so that you guys, if you're not from Texas, you can come in here and say, hey, I want to plan a trip around the festival. That's what a lot of people do. If you're not from Texas, I guarantee you this is a festival you do not want to miss. So go to TexasWhiskeyFest.com and buy your tickets today. Enjoy the show.
Well, the why question is pretty easy to answer, Randall. I retired after 20 plus years in the Navy, both 12 years in the Royal Australian Navy and 10 in the USN. So I served for both countries.
Thank you for
and
your
I was
service.
retired medically because of some injuries suffered in Afghanistan. And, it was at that point one of those things where, what do I do? Do I become a defense contractor? Do I go and work for a multinational company? Whatever. None of that really appealed to me, and probably no one would have had me anyhow. So, it was one of those things where we just decided, my wife and I just had only been to Kentucky a couple of times. But we loved it. So I was down here for a month or so. Just fell in love. I was in Lexington at the time. Just fell in love with the state, with the folks and the people. And we thought, well, screw it. Let's just up chocks and get out of Virginia and move to Kentucky.
Awesome.
So that's how. And the other part of that, Randall, is that there's really only two things you can do in Kentucky. One is horses, and the other one is bourbon. And I'm scared shitless of horses, so there was no other choice. I had to do bourbon.
Okay. Well, at least you weren't scared shitless of bourbon, because that would be that would kind of ruin the whole story.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about this bottled in bond bourbon. I see that it has a 75-21-4 mash bill, which is pretty normal and consistent throughout a lot of the guys out there. You were based out of Lawrenceburg as well, so tell us a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, sure. So we're in Lawrenceburg, Kentucky. Our distillery is literally right next door to Wild Turkey. We love the folks at Wild Turkey. They've been really helpful to us as we've been starting out, as have, Four Roses, as have Woodford, and people are it's just that I just love the industry because of the camaraderie and that sort of thing. That was probably the biggest thing that really struck me when we started this up is, I didn't know what I didn't know, and we'll never have enough money, we'll never know enough. But the folks in the business, as it were, the distilling industry in Kentucky, are sort of the best folks that sort of outside the military that I've been around, and I really, really enjoy it, and I owe great debt to those folks. Insofar as the bottled in bond, this was one of those ones, our mash bill with this guy is our standard mash bill. So that's the 75-21-4 is, you'll see that run through a lot of our products. And we do that for a couple of reasons. One, we're only little, and at some point we're going to start running out of product. So when we started doing this, gosh, nearly 10 years ago, it was one of those things that we went into it thinking, if we come up with, one of our favorite mash bills that other folks make as well, that's really good, when we do get to that point, if we get to that point where we don't have enough, product of our own to go into some of our more mainstream brands, we would have the opportunity to do that. Fortunately, right now we've been able to, keep tapping into our own stock, and we're going to keep doing that as long as we can. And we've got, stuff coming online pretty regularly, and the problem for us was in the beginning, this was almost a hobby for me, and so instead of making 100 barrels a year, I was making 20 or 30, or what I mean. So, but all our single barrels will remain ours. But some of the and the bottled in bond will be probably one that we've been doing some contract distilling, although that hasn't hit the bottles yet. But again, that 75-21-4 mash bill, I'd always wanted to create a bottled in bond product. And we were having people come in like regularly into the distillery saying, "Oh, do you have a bottled in bond? I only drink bottled in bond." I'm like, "Oh, for the love of God." Okay, well, we better get one made. So Chris, who's my assistant distiller at Larrikin, and I spent best part of a day and a half just pulling whiskey out of barrel, literally, when it's not very scientific at our place, literally just pulling samples out of barrels, mixing them together and seeing what would work. And it wasn't getting to where I wanted it to be. And by sort of noon on the second day, I was like, okay, we've been being too clever here. So I just said, find the two hottest barrels that we didn't think would go in this whiskey, and find me the most boring barrel that we wouldn't have put into this whiskey. And that's what he did. And there was only 3 barrels in this first batch. This is actually still the first batch here that you would be drinking as well.
Oh, okay.
So there's only 3 barrels in that, and we blended them together, the little samples of them together, and I knew before I'd even tasted it that it was right, and
Right.
it was. And the next batch we're doing is, to get to the same profile, we had to go into 7 barrels to get where we needed to be. But we're very lucky. The reception to it has been terrific. We launched it at Kentucky Bourbon Festival, and it received, very, very positive reviews and responses. So we've been particularly lucky with how that's gone down.
Yes, and just to let you know, I am taking a cheeky little sip of it, and it's really nice. It does have that springiness at the front where it's almost a little peppery, and then it just mellows in the background, and then you get the vanillas and caramels and stuff like that. And is this 4 years old, or it says
this is 8 years old?
8 years old. Okay, so
Yeah.
that's why I was wondering, because I was getting some pretty good barrel tannins and stuff like that on it. I didn't realize it was 8. So that's really nice.
That would explain in part, what you're tasting there. The other thing, Randall, that we strive for at Larrikin is I don't like whiskey that gives me heartburn. Right?
Absolutely.
You can smell whiskey and know that it's gonna blow back on you. So we haven't yet, and that's the aim. Is we won't put if it's going to burn you on the way. It might warm up your mouth, might heat up your mouth, might tingle your tongue, might be hot when you first take it. But if it burns as it goes down, we won't put it in the bottle.
Right.
And that's just that's like our little thing. And we have 140 proof whiskeys out there that don't burn when they go down. We just released our Deep Purple last week, which is 142 proof, single barrel. And I'm not just saying this, it's probably the best single bottle or single barrel that we've put out since we started.
Wow.
It's 140 something proof.
That says a lot, because normally when you get that hot, you get that high of proof, the ethanol will just take over because it's mainly ethanol, but to have something that to where it's that drinkable at that high of a proof, it really says something about your maturation and the care that you guys are taking in the barrels, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and I think that's something I always forget to mention is that our bourbons, not our whiskeys, not our rye, but our bourbons are aged in French oak, new French oak.
Oh, French oak.
Yeah, as opposed to American white oak. And, I think my family of winemakers back in Australia, have been in the wine industry for 3 generations at home. So I grew up with fermentation and tanks and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And I'd always just been around French oak because, it's the wine industry. And so I didn't even think about it when I bought them when we started doing this. I kind of just thought that's what it was. But we've stuck with that since, because I think the tightness of the barrel and the I'm not a scientist, obviously. If I was, I'd be at NASA or somewhere. But that's my anecdotal reason why our whiskey doesn't burn, and maybe that's total nonsense, but that's in my head, and that's what I'm. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
No, and I think you're right. I think you're getting onto something, because with French oak, a lot of times I get a little, I don't want to say a darker flavor, but I get a little more of a dark flavor on it. Not like molasses or anything like that, just like a darker wood type flavor. And that's what I'm getting here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so it's really interesting to me, that how the profile of it, and I haven't taken a sip in a minute, and I can still taste it going back in my throat, which is really nice. And then it does warm you a little bit. You get that little Kentucky hug, which is perfect. And this is just at 100 proof. So I mean, that's saying something. So let's talk about Larrikin. I was looking on your guys' website, and I thought this was very fitting, because I feel like I'm the same way. Larrikin in your description says you disregard convention.
Yep.
Which is something that I have tried to do in my life. Obviously, I'm the tattooed guy.
Man,
I'm
that's some
yeah,
serious
I
heat,
am.
brother.
Yeah, I'm I'm the redheaded stepchild of whiskey. Nobody wants to talk to me, that type of thing. But yet that when I'm
I don't
doing
want to
cool
talk to
stuff,
anybody anyhow, so there you go.
yeah, exactly. I don't want to talk to you anyway. No, but it's like understanding, like I disregard convention. Like I don't care about the norm. I'm not trying to do the normal thing.
Right.
And so that really resonated with me, that we are all in our own way, our own Larrikin. You know what I mean? And then
Yep.
that really hit me. And I appreciate you putting that on there so I could see it, and it kind of resonated with me really well. And I want to thank, is it Jennifer?
Jennifer Ritchie, yeah.
Yes, for sending over. She sent like papers with all of your information on it, like this. She went out of her way, little stickers, all the things with this sample package. So it gave me the lowdown.
Somebody's got to keep the ship floating. Certainly not
Absolutely,
me.
somebody needs a raise.
Yeah, no, let's not tell her that. God, gosh, holy moly.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
Yeah, so Larrikin, so we started life, and I don't know if you know this, Randall, you may, but we started life as Lawrenceburg Bourbon Company a couple of years ago. And it, like, that's the town where we are, and there'd never been a Lawrenceburg Bourbon, and it was a great way to start. But it became apparent to us pretty quick that it didn't really reflect on who we were as a company. It didn't reflect on our values or anything like that, or how we operate. And it's really a sort of damn the torpedoes approach down at Larrikin, in that we just go with it until we hit a roadblock, and then we get over that roadblock and we go again. And sort of the patron saint of Larrikins in Australia is Steve Erwin, the Crocodile hunter. So we have a big poster of him up in our distillery, along with some other Larrikins from history, and that includes people like the Tuskegee Airmen, and Annie Oakley, and people that have busted through and just gone at it when they shouldn't have been able to.
Absolutely.
So Johnny Cash.
Amen.
So, that's, it's much easier to describe something that people understand, Steve Irwin, Johnny Cash, etc., than, explaining what a larrikin is writ large. So that's what a larrikin is. It really does encapsulate what we, how we go about it at Larrikin Bourbon Company. And so far, so good.
That's awesome. So y'all been open since 2015, you said?
I've been distilling off and on for about 10 years.
Okay.
But, it started back when it was really shits and giggles almost.
Right.
And my intent was to make enough product to, just sell to other craft distillers and things like that.
Got it.
Then this morphed into a tasting room when we were at Lawrenceburg, on Main Street in Lawrenceburg, Kentucky.
Oh, wow.
We had our 2 products, and we sold out of our very first 5 barrels of single barrel in 24 hours. And it's we ran out of whiskey then. But, it's progressed from there, and now we have a really nice facility, distillery, as I mentioned, right next door to Wild Turkey in Lawrenceburg there. Pardon me. And, we've got we'll have our 3rd still in the next couple of weeks.
Oh, wow. That's exciting.
Pot stills. We've got a little baby 50-gallon pot still, which we run all our light spirits, our vodka and gin through that. Then we have the one that's coming is 150-gallon still, which will probably run a 500-gallon pot still at times, and then use it separate standalone at other times. So we've gone from having no stills to having 3 stills in a pretty short period of time. But it's super exciting. We're running out of room already, but yeah, it's just been wonderful.
Well, and that's what you want, right? You want to be like, hey, I have this thought in my head. I want to see it through. And so you start with something. Just start, right? Just start
Right.
with something. And then you're like, oh, we've outgrown this facility. We need to move. Or doesn't fit our lifestyle. Let's move to another place. And I guess if we're going to move, we got to get a bigger still. We got to get bigger, bigger things. And then you grow out of that. And that's why so many of these distilleries are like added onto and added onto and added onto, because
I
they
know,
grow.
I understand now. Yeah.
I mean, it's so crazy, but it's also so cool because it's like they're trying to meet demand. And if you have the demand, and if you're like, hey, we're selling out single barrels like that, we need to make more, right? So we got to get to work, which is really cool that people are vibing with what you have, and it makes you feel good for one, and then it's like, oh man, now I got to do the hard work and actually make the whiskey again, and then sit on it for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's cool.
I never thought I would, be like a sales rep going, cold calling on stores and things. But when you've got a warehouse full of product, you go and call on everybody. And we've had a great reception. We're now in Kroger, Liquor Barn here in Kentucky. We're in about half a dozen states, including Illinois, Wisconsin, randomly Arkansas. But who doesn't want to be in Arkansas?
Yeah,
they're great. But it's been certainly an education getting to where we are. A lot of frustration, and because remember, the alcohol industry is probably the most regulated industry in the country, particularly when all the government agencies are putting their hands out for money. I mean, the local county here in Anderson County just tried to put a 5% tax on any alcohol sold by us, Four Roses, Wild Turkey, and we beat that back. But everyone's got their hand out if they've they see the bourbon industry as a bit of a cash cow, and it's an
absolutely
easy way to fleece some money out of folks, and they kind of forget that these distilleries are employing people, they're putting people in school, they're paying their tax, but it's an easy hit for some of these guys to come in and ask for it again.
Well, and I mean, like most people say, I just want to make good whiskey. That's all I want to do. Like, why am I sitting here having to sit down with tax people? Like take care of it. But then again, like they keep adding on and adding on. Next thing you know, a bottle of whiskey is going to be $300 by the time, so you can pay taxes on it. So I totally get it. But you have to fight this stuff, but you have to be in the community. And I feel like that's one of the things you guys are doing. You guys are in the community doing the thing, because there's some of these people, the big guys, that they don't really they have community outreach, but they don't have it in their area. They might just have it in their area. They don't branch out as much. So it's really cool to see that you're, fighting the good fight, I guess.
Yep, that's our unofficial slogan at Larrikin is "Born to Fight." So we have a lot of vets work. Well, when I say a lot, nearly half of our little team of veterans. Wow. At Larrikin, we count vets as military vets, law enforcement, EMTs, and first responders, and nurses, healthcare professionals.
Awesome.
So we've got nurses, we've got Marines, Navy, Army, no Air Force yet, and we've got one cop. So
one cop.
Yeah, one cop.
That's all you can really handle is one cop.
I have to tell you this. So Brian, who works for us, is a cop, still badge carrying police officer. So he was at Evergreen Liquor in Bardstown last Saturday, I think. Talking to the manager and whatever. Anyhow, in the corner of his eye, he notices someone stealing a bottle of tequila. He waits for the guy to walk out the door. He literally runs, or he sees him walking out the door. He literally runs after him and arrests him on the stoop of the shop Well, it was a Saturday. All the customers, the staff are all watching. He then calls into the Bardstown police station and gets a paddy wagon to come and pick the guy up, charges him, and off he goes.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
It was pretty crazy. It was crazy. So
that's funny. That's funny. So it's not like in what is that, New York or California, where they just watch them walk out. They're just like, hey, we can't do nothing about it, so they're just gonna let them walk out.
I don't think that's going to roll in Bardstown, Kentucky.
I don't think so. I don't think so. So I wanted to let you know that bottled and bond bourbon was excellent. I had a very small sample because it is, a weekday. I don't want to do too much, but I poured a little bit of the maple finished, which that is intriguing because, the whole thing with finishing right now with bourbons being finished, the Scotch guys have been doing it forever. And so, yeah, that's a beautiful bottle too. The Scotch guys have been doing it forever. They start out and use bourbon barrels. So that's kind of their thing. And bourbon has just now, they've been doing it for a while. There's a couple of expressions that we're doing it, but they're just now coming into their own, I think, with this whole finishing thing. And why did you pick maple?
So we have a little program at the distillery where I've been pretty anti-finishing anything.
Right.
It's just not really my thing, but people enjoy trying finished whiskeys. So what we do at the distillery, we have a program where people can come in and taste out of 4 different barrels that are all different finishes. So we have a jackfruit barrel, we have a maple barrel, we have a rosewater barrel, and we have a Madeira barrel. Ooh. People love them, and then people can thieve their own whiskey and do all that sort of stuff. The overwhelming favorite has been was the maple, and really? The maple has a pretty cool story because we'd been dumping our barrels and sending them to a husband and wife maple farmers in Wisconsin, a place called Merrill, Wisconsin, and they would then put their maple syrup in it. We would buy the maple syrup, and they were shipping it. Then we thought, well, heck, we'll get the barrels back and we'll put some whiskey in them. So the barrels had our single barrels in them. They've gone to Wisconsin, been filled with maple syrup for about 4 months, I think. And then they come back to us, and then we put our these are all 5-year-old, I think, same mash bill. And we only let it rest in there for a couple of months because, I've had some maple finished bourbon, which tastes like it's scraped off the top of a pancake. And that just wasn't what we wanted to do. I wanted the whiskey to shine through and just have that hint of maple syrup in the back. And I think we've pulled it off. This has proved super popular in the last, I guess it's the season for
it. It is. And I will tell you, I just took a sip of it, and it's bourbon all day long. And then at the very end, you get that sweetness, that syrupy, maple sweetness, which that's it. That's all there is. It's not like it's overpowering with, honey or all this, or it's super sweet. A lot of people think that finished stuff is really sweet, but some of them is if you don't dump all the maple out and stuff like that. But yeah, that's really interesting. Now, I will tell you on this one, and I don't know if it's a typo, so if it is, I'm sorry. It says 70% corn, 9% malted barley. So this no? Okay. I just wanted to say, I was like,
that's definitely
that's weird. Okay.
Our small batch is our only high corn whiskey, which is a 70% corn. So that probably got thrown in there by mistake.
Okay. No, it's no big deal. I just wanted to clarify that.
That's one reason Jennifer can't get a pay rise.
Oh man, she messed it up.
That's right.
That's awesome. That's awesome. No, this one to me, and this one is coming at 45% alcohol or 90 proof. So it's a little bit lighter, obviously, in its flavor. It doesn't have the prickle on the lip at the take in, but it has, the nose is really nice too. It has this just inherent, I wouldn't even, if you were to give it to me up front and say, not told me it was maple finished, it just has an inherent sweetness. It's not until you taste it when you get that little maple hint, and it's just like a kiss of it. It's nothing overpowering, which is really really nice if you want something finished but not, dunked in maple.
I'm going to rip off that phrase, a kiss of maple. I like that a lot. You should be in our marketing department, Randall.
I really should.
You should. We'll talk to Jennifer.
I suck at marketing, but okay. I can't even market myself, let alone an entire brand. I guess I am marketing a brand too, but anyway, whatever. Okay, so I just barely get it on the very end, which is really cool. So, where was I going? I was going somewhere. So you guys have been around for a minute. You started doing your own thing. Let's talk a little bit about your fermentation, stuff like that. Are you doing basic everything just straight across? Are you doing any funky things with fermentation, like sourdough or?
Oh God, no. We I'm a bit of a two reasons. I'm a bit of a traditionalist with everything from wine to whiskey, but also I don't know enough to be doing any funky stuff. So we have to stick to what we know, so we don't screw it up. We apart from using stainless steel tanks and that sort of more modern things, we're probably distilling very much like they would have 50 years ago, just in that. And not saying we're doing that deliberately, it's just that we're just making whiskey.
Right. Exactly.
And that's
I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like, if you let the whiskey show, like, use a good yeast that's going to attenuate well, that's going to get out of there, it's going to do its job, it's going to eat the sugar, and then distill it clean, distill it, like it should be, put it in good barrels. Can you talk about the cooperage that y'all use?
They come out of, I don't know what my dad gets them for me. They come out of orders them for us. They come out of Marseille in France.
Oh, okay.
We're about to start using for some of our other barrels a cooperage, a small cooperage called Zach Cooperage. I think they're in Michigan, but the owner is a really good guy. I think his barrels are fantastic. So they'll be our locally sourced barrels moving forward.
Awesome. So do you do any American white oak barrels? Or are they all
these
French
ones
oak?
will be American white oak. The ones we get from Zach. So all of our non-bourbons are American white oak. So our ryes are all American white oak. And French oak is expensive.
Yes.
So we're talking with Zach at the cooperage about, doing some things where it might be, we use the barrel heads will be French oak and the staves will be American white oak.
Oh, that's cool.
Or intermingling different staves of French and white. I don't know how that would work with the expansion and stuff, but we're pretty well advanced talking to them about the barrel heads as a French, just to try something different.
Absolutely. And innovating, but yet sticking to tradition, which is really cool, which is something that, a lot of brands, I see a lot of brands pushing boundaries a little bit right now, but yet they're staying in their lane, but they might be going a little faster. You know what I mean? They're staying in their lane. So that's really cool. So, okay. So in Kentucky, it's bourbon centric, right? How do the rye, we're going to get to the rye, but I was just thinking about this. How does the rye play in bourbon country? You know what I mean? How does the rye, or really have y'all thought about doing just a straight single malt, or something like that? You can go either way.
My assistant distiller is busting my chops to do an American single malt. So I told him, let's get the rest of it right, then we can look at that next year. So, we'll see how that goes. But no, look, the rye, we don't have any, I guess what you'd call traditional ryes Like the rye
Right.
that you would have in front of you would be our single barrel high wheat rye. So
Okay.
that's a 65% rye, 35% wheat
Okay.
whiskey. Um, uh, it was one of those bourbons or one of those whiskeys that just worked and it shouldn't have.
Yeah.
So this was one of those ones we tried out when I was very first starting, and a distiller down in Florida, and he's a rum distiller mainly, but they've shut up shop since. But he had been experimenting with ryes and wheats, and I got to know him when I was down at SOCOM at Tampa, and we played around, and Jacob came up with some great ideas, and some of them didn't work, some of them did, and we tried a couple of different versions of this that didn't work, and then this one for some reason did, and I think it's a genuinely remarkable whiskey. It's kind of like a bourbon drinker's rye almost,
Okay.
or a Scotch
Okay. I
drinker's
love
bourbon.
that.
So
I
I'm
got
trying to capture every market I can in one hit. But yeah, it's I've actually got a little sample bottle just here, which I just bought home yesterday, which I haven't.
Well, I mean, if you're pouring the rye, I'm going to pour the rye too, I guess.
No, you might as well.
You might as well, right? It's not in order though. Everything has to have order. Okay, so while we're pouring this rye, and I'm going to nose it and do all the things, the nerdy things that you do. I have never been to Australia. And obviously it's a destination that everybody wants to go to. I have a buddy who lives in New Zealand, but that doesn't mean anything. New Zealand is not Australia.
Just around the corner.
Yeah, exactly. So what is it like? You were in the military over there, which that's awesome. How different is the military in Australia from America?
Yeah, I get asked that a lot, and I think there's a couple of ways to answer that. One, it's much smaller, obviously,
Right.
and the US has just an extraordinary array of materiel and weapons and technology.
Right.
Australia bats above its weight from its size to its military capability. I think our special forces are amongst the top 2 or 3 in the world. Our Navy's very capable. And it's kind of like we're the deputy sheriff in the Southeast Asian region.
Okay.
The US is doing everything everywhere else. You might have the Brits and the French floating around in Europe a bit, and the US, and then we sort of try and keep a little bit of order in the Southeast Asian region. So whether that's everything from illegal fishing to areas of conflict,
Right.
In New Guinea or the Solomons or Timor or any of that sort of stuff. And obviously there's a big threat from China now,
Right.
bubbling away up there. But, one thing that few people would realize, and why would they, but is Australia is the only country on the planet that has fought alongside the US in every single conflict since World War I.
Wow.
And that includes Korea, Vietnam, Somalia, Afghanistan, Iraq, et cetera, et cetera. So the only country.
that and see, that's the thing that, I mean, maybe I'm in different history books or whatever, but that's the thing that they don't tell you. Like, we do have really good allies that have had our back for a long time, and because everybody, not I don't want to say everybody, but how do I say this? Everybody kind of disregards Australia as being a force to be reckoned with, right? But when they have your back, they're like, that scrappy little kid that comes up there and punches you in the knee, oh God, and then runs off, and you're like, what was that? So
exactly.
But also, I have seen, and I know movies and reality shows about Australia where those people are hardcore. Like, you're living. Yeah,
well, everything can kill you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Jellyfish, the spiders, the snakes, everything can kill you.
All the snakes, all the poisonous snakes are there, and you're like, what in the world? Why would you? What are you doing? That's pretty cool.
That's why even now we're on We have a small cattle farm here, and we have snakes all over the place, but they're garden snakes, right?
Right.
Doesn't matter to me. Like anyone that lives here is like, what are you doing? And I'm like running to get a shoulder hit on the head or whatever, and they're like, don't. I see a snake and I just panic, because at home that snake's going to bite you once and you're going to be dead in 30 seconds.
Right.
So
That's
it's a hard thing
snake's
for
a
me to
black
get over.
mamba.
Yeah, really. So we
All right, I'm going to sneak in here real fast, guys. I won't keep you long. I wanted to talk about our sponsor today. That is none other than Hinterhouse Distilling. This is the Batch 3 American Single Malt, their Discovery Series, their collab with Dust Bowl Brewing Company. And I was talking to Nate the other day, and he said that this bottle is almost sold out. So if you want to get one, go over to hinterhousedistilling.com and pick you up a bottle. I've been sipping on this one. I sampled this one out a little bit to some people. We've had some really good reviews with it. So if you're into American Single Malt, and they also have bourbons and other things, their Warming Hut was an amazing cordial or holiday drink that they made. I don't know if that's available anymore, so you have to check the website. But one of the things I will say, these guys are grain to glass. They're doing everything in-house. They're trying to keep it as local and as terroir driven as possible. So go over there, check them out, hinterhousedistilling.com. They do have pretty good distribution, so you should be able to get you a bottle. So y'all be good. Enjoy the rest of the show. And until next time, keep your spirits up.
I have a healthy fear of snakes.
Well, which everybody should, because I live in Central Texas and we have rattlesnakes
Oh yeah.
all over the place. I live right close to a big granite deposit, and there are rattlesnakes all over the place. And so, like, I'm a plumber by trade, so I go and I crawl underneath people's houses and I dig in their yard, and their little valve cans that you have to open up and turn their water off. I have found, luckily, I've been doing this a while. Luckily, I've only found like 2 or 3 snakes in all of that. And of course, I turned around and left, because I'm like, I'm not crawling underneath your house. There's a snake under there. I'm not going to do it. Because for one, I can barely turn around under there. I'm not going to be able to run if that snake is coming after me. So you find somebody, get Billy the exterminator to come over there, get that snake out, and then I will go back under there.
I'd never get back under.
Absolutely. It's so crazy. Okay, so I did dip into this rye whiskey, which jumped the gun, which made me feel weird. But anyway, so this is a single barrel 9. Let me see what she said. What did she say? Where's my? It is a 8-year at 120 proof.
Yep.
So, I mean, you guys are getting some excellent age statements on these whiskeys. How hard is it for you not to pull it earlier?
Up until now, that was always the intent. Well, back in the day, I was never going to release anything that wasn't at least 5 years old. And then there's a master distiller here of a big distillery that I've known for a number of years that I trust his judgment on. And we popped these 4-year-old barrels, 4.5, I guess. And I was like, these are bloody good, And so I took them to him and I said, what do you think of these? They're only 4.5 years old. I'm really going to leave them I think I'm going to leave another 6 months. And he tasted a couple of them. And he's like, Greg, you just need to put these in the bottle. They might get a little bit better. They might not, or they might just change, entirely.
Right.
And, that was a lesson to me. And what we've done since is that, you can go into Liquor Barn or Kroger and see a bottle of Larrikin single barrel on the shelf and another one next to it. And one might be 6 years old and one might be 8 years old.
Okay.
People are always going to gravitate to the 8, and we get that.
Right.
But we will bottle the barrel when we think it's ready to go in the bottle.
I love
so,
that.
We've had 5 years out. I mean, we had a 5-year single barrel that we entered in the Monterey International in California. It won, it was a 5-year, and it was up to 10-year-old class. It won best whiskey, best spirit, best in show, the entire spirits thing. It won me Distiller of the Year. and it scored 99 points.
Shut up.
This is a 5-year-old single barrel. It was 120 proof, I guess, but it was 5 years old.
Right.
You know, I've got 5-year-old barrels in our rick house that I'd put up against our 8 and now some 9-year-old barrels. They're just better.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Longer doesn't mean better, in my opinion.
No,
and
no,
I know
no,
a lot of people disagree with that, but just because it says 8 years or 9 years or 10 years doesn't mean the whiskey's necessarily any good. It's just been sitting there longer.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And after a certain time, you're just building more tannins. You're not really building complexity. You're just making it more woody, if that makes sense.
Yep.
You're just making it taste like wood. And
Yep.
some people love that. Like, you know, no offense to Pappy 23 or anything like that. It's okay, but I prefer the Pappy 15. Not that I have 7 bottles of it sitting on the shelf or anything, but you know, it's one of those things. Like, I prefer the younger style. And I've talked to quite a few people. I've been gracious enough to have quite a few people on this show say we pull it when it's ready. We don't care about this huge age statement or anything like that. We pull it when it's ready. And I love that. I love that you guys are like, hey, this 5-year-old is way better than this 8-year-old. I'm sorry, it is.
And they just are, you know, and
they just are.
You know, when you're getting an 8-year-old, like we've got some stellar 8-year-old whiskeys, bourbons primarily, but and that's why most of the single barrels, at least, that you'll see out there are our 8 years, and you'll see a couple of 9 years floating out there in the next little bit. But you know, when we go through, and we're not very scientific with how we do any of this. We you know, whoever's working that day will go into the back when we know it's time to get another couple of single barrels rolling. We'll literally pop a bunch of corks, or we'll drill into a bunch of barrels, and we'll see how they flow. And if we like them, they get we put a cross on them. And if they still need time, we just date them and put a circle on them, and you know, keep them for a little bit longer. And but if we pop a 5-year-old and it's good, that's going to go in the bottle.
Wow. That's really cool.
It's almost Randall, if you see one of our single barrels and it's younger on the shelf in a retail store, that's the one I'd buy, because it's got to be a really good bottle or barrel to get bottled at 5 years old. So,
absolutely.
And I like doing that. You know, we do in the tasting room. We do a single barrel flight, and they'll all be single barrels. They'll all be bourbon. They'll all be the same mash bill. Right. Some of them might be out of the you know, barrels that are sitting next to each other, but there may be one that's a 5-year-old, and there might be one that's a 6-year-old, and there might be 2 8-year-olds. And people are astonished when you say, look, these are exactly the same mash bill. They're exactly the same everything, except they're in different barrels. Right. Particularly when you get 2 of the same age, and they're really quite different. So we really enjoy doing that, and I think that our visitors like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it. You know, when you go do a tasting experience, you know, like you do at all the distilleries, you want to be able to do that one thing like most people aren't going to be able to do, and trying all these different single barrels and putting them and saying which one you like the best. You might pick a 5-year. Who knows? You know, that to me is really cool, because it takes the bias out of it. And I do blind sampling all the time, and it takes the bias out of it to where it's just you and that glass, and you're trying to figure out what's going on in this whiskey. You don't even know what it is. Right. And it's really cool. So yeah, that's
awesome. And we have, like, when people come in and they do the flight, it's for samples, and we'll say to them, you know, do you want us to tell you what they are, or do you want to see which one you like? And it's about 50-50. You know, people want to do the blind taste, or someone will say, I want to know, and then, you know, the husband or the wife will be like, no, I want to prove how smart I am and see if I get it right, which is awesome. We love that.
Absolutely. And it's all about the camaraderie and, like, understanding the people and being like, okay, this is you want to know everything. I want to know everything from fermentation temperature and all that stuff. Or do you want to just drink some good whiskey, you know, and tell me which one do you like the best? Okay, I like this one. This is the bottle. you need to buy this bottle, basically. And so how many? So like, let's say you're doing those tastings. How many of those turn into a purchase of a bottle?
Nearly all of them.
I would guess so.
And you get different groups. I mean, if you've got a big, you get a big tour bus of 30 people, you might only get 5 of them are going to buy it. But if you've got folks that are coming in specifically on the bourbon trail and they're wanting to try new things, and our stuff is, some of it is pretty unique. We've got a great team of folks in our tasting room now that everyone has a good time. No one's made feel stupid, or you know what I mean? There's no, like, out of the wine business a little bit, winemakers have a penchant for like looking down their nose at you if you say something stupid or you don't know what you're talking about. We don't do that. And one thing we don't do at the distillery, I never do either, is, people say, oh, what do you get out of this, glass, out of, this bottle? And I'll never have an opinion. So, because if someone gets mango, or someone gets tobacco, or someone gets leather, or, manure, I don't care. If that's what they get, that's what it is. And, and we've drummed that into our little team too, is that, this is about the people that are coming to drink the whiskey, not about you showing you how smart you are about bourbon. So, that's just one thing we do. And I think people enjoy it. And I think, if someone does taste, lots and lots of leather-bound books or whatever, that's what they've tasted. And who am I to say, well, no, it tastes like caramel and vanilla.
Right. Well, because it's so subjective. It goes with what you've ate for the day, your mood, your, how you're, just how you're feeling can change how you're tasting things. So you can taste one bourbon one day and be like, that's amazing, and taste it the next day and I'm like, nope, that's crap. So, and I bet that's hard for y'all.
I do that every day.
Samples. Go ahead.
Yeah, every day I do that. Like
every day.
I will try, and it could be off the single barrel tasting we've got on the thing. People say, which one do I ask me which one I like the most of the samples, and I'll tell them that. I'll say I like, B3 or Charlie 6 or whatever.
Right.
But then I'll go and taste it again. And I'm like, you know what? I actually like Delta 2 now, because you're right. It's the environment. It's what you've been doing that day. It's, do you want something that's robust and spicy, or do you want something that's just going to glide down your throat?
Right.
It changes dramatically for me. I don't know if that's the case with everybody, but I really notice a difference, even morning to night, day to day. It's it really is quite different, the experience.
Yes, it definitely is. And some people say when you're smelling a whiskey, like you put it in one nostril, you smell something different in the other nostril. So it's like it's so weird. And everybody's taste, it goes back to a memory, right? Taste is directly related to a memory. Yeah. So this whiskey smells to me like my grandma's basement. Have you ever been in my grandma's basement? No, but if I explain it to you, you can understand. Oh, you're getting that graham cracker or that moldy wood, that whatever, but that's the thing. Like, it all goes back to a memory, which is, and so like some people will say, this is the best bottle I've ever had because it gives me that memory of a really great time that I had. But to another person, they're like, no, I like this one. That was not that good. They're all great in their own respect, but like this one is really singing to me. So it's like taste being so subjective. I really applaud you for not putting your 2 cents in and being like, it's good whiskey. Obviously I made it, but other than that, enjoy.
I'm a little bit biased, but
yeah, exactly. And so, okay. So I moved into the last one because I'm going to wrap up here. I'm not trying to get you off the floor at all, but this is the single barrel bourbon, and it was barrel C3, coming in at 121 proof, and it is a 8-year-old. And so this one to me, I saved it for last because it's I think it's the higher proof. It's the higher proof.
That would be.
By 1 point.
Yeah.
But it brings me to a thing of like, I like to ask this question a lot. When you're not drinking your own bourbon and you're not tasting it, and I know like people say, "Oh, it must be nice to just drink bourbon all day and taste bourbon all day."
Yeah,
it is. It is. Yes, don't get me wrong. That's a perk of the job. But at the same time, what is there a bourbon that you go to that's not your brand? And I'm not trying to be brand specific if you don't want to tell me, but like a bourbon you go to, or a whiskey, or a cognac, or whatever that you go to, when you're like, man, I just need to either reset my palate, or I just want something I don't have to think about. I just go to it and it's awesome.
Yeah, so if that's a great question. I mean, there are so many fantastic whiskeys out there now. There's some really shit ones too, but there's some really good bourbon and really good rye out there. And I just think around. I've been really impressed with the blends that they're doing at J.R. Mattingly's, which is down by Buffalo Trace. I think they make some this Mattingly's. I think they make some great whiskey. But if I'm in a let's say I'm in a sports bar or a bar or whatever, or an event, my go-to is generally Turkey 101.
Mm-hmm.
It's consistent. It's like the Big Mac of bourbon, but it tastes good, unlike a Big Mac.
Yeah.
But so I'll quite happily sip 101 neat. I'll put it on a rock. I'll put it in a cocktail. So that is my, and nothing against any of the other big brands, but if you're in a bar in, I don't know, California, they don't really have a lot of selection of anything craft or any of that sort of thing.
Right.
And so there's all the sort of majors up there that you can get in, everywhere. I'll almost always drink 101.
Absolutely. You picked the right answer. So
good. I just think it's great.
And it just so happens they're your neighbors, so that's even better.
Yeah, right? I can't say anything
So do you get special perks? Not trying to talk about Wild Turkey on your podcast, but do you get special perks over there, being like, "Hey, can I get a sneaky taste of this, 100-year-old whiskey?" I mean, do you get any perks?
If we asked, they would absolutely do that. But I tell you, the biggest perk we have, Mr. Russell, Jimmy Russell. He loves chatting to all their guests and stuff over there, and he now sends so many people to our distillery.
Oh my gosh.
The first time it happened a few months back, someone walked in and was like, "Oh, Jimmy sent us." I'm like, "Jimmy who?" And they're like, "Jimmy Russell Durr." I'm like, "Oh, he did? Oh, that's good." And now on a weekend, because I think he's generally there sort of Thursday, Friday, Saturday kind of thing.
Right.
When he's feeling good, we'll get a dozen groups come in that Jimmy Russell sent to us.
Oh, that's amazing.
But again, that's the industry. He is such a nice man. Just wonderful. And but yeah, like that's a pretty good perk. And the other pretty cool perk is you go to if you go to a Christmas party with a bunch of industry people, distillers, it's always bring your own bottle. And there's the best ones are when you rock up and there's hardly any labels on anything and people just written in a gold pen it is. And it's got a white sticker on it with what it is, and they've just pulled it out of the barrel that day or whatever. That's pretty cool. And we just actually had a dinner, the annual dinner for the Kentucky Distillers Association. And part of it is members will if they want can put a bottle on an open bar, and it's all bartenders and stuff. And but literally there's you think of any really good Kentucky whiskey and it's sitting behind their bar, and that was a long night.
Yeah, I bet. And so this brings up another question. Obviously, how do you being around those people that you admire in the whiskey industry. And you guys are not young in the game. You guys are getting your feet, and you're making excellent product. How do you like not get like the I don't know, the jitters being around all these people that are like juggernauts in the game?
Yeah, it's funny you asked that. I've done in the last 6 months some, been on panels or in interview situations. Like I just did one at Bourbon and Beyond, which is that huge music festival in Louisville. And, I'm on the panel there with Elizabeth McCall from Woodford and, who else was there? Johnny from Peerless Distilling and, oh my God, mine's just gone blank, from Brent at Four Roses. So there I am on this panel with these doyens of the industry and me. Right. And but they are very welcoming, and they know I don't know shit from clay compared to them. But it's quite humbling that these folks are that welcoming, and it's great. I mean, I just did another thing, a veterans thing at the Kentucky Derby Museum, and there was the lead distiller from Bardstown. Who else was there? I can't even think, but they were all big. Oh, there was me and MB Roland. That was the other small one. Yeah. And then there was and MB Roland aren't tiny, and then there was Bardstown. I can't remember, but there was all of these big lead distillers on this stage, and Fred Minnick was the host, and did the interviewing and stuff, and it was just a hoot. We were all laughing, and
absolutely,
all giving each other shit, as it were, as we were going along. I hope I'm allowed to swear on this podcast. Sorry.
Oh yeah, let her rip, Tittership.
For you. Yeah. Well, I was, I wasn't a Navy officer for 20 plus years, so I do tend to cuss a bit.
Absolutely. No, it's all good. This is a 21 and up podcast, so don't worry about it.
Oh yeah, perfect.
Okay, so that leads me to the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, which we kind of hit on because one of these was released there and stuff like that. How was that this year, especially? Because I feel like more people came out, and I don't know number, and don't quote me on that. I feel like there was more coverage of it, I'll say that, this year than a lot of other years. How was it for y'all, especially because, like I said, I heard this through that. So how was it for y'all?
Look, the Kentucky Bourbon Festival is amazing. Stacy, that is the operations director there, is just wonderful. A year ago, and I've told them this, but a year ago, not this last, but coming out of COVID, being able to participate in the Kentucky Bourbon Festival literally allowed us to pay off credit card debt so we could keep the distillery running. Amen. So it's very important to us. We will always be very staunch supporters of it. But this year, we did our name change at the Bourbon Festival this year, and the festival folks were just amazing to work with. And we released our bottled in bond, and it got picked up by a lot of the influencers that were there, and a lot of them were like, "This is the best whiskey at the festival, and this is the best new blah blah blah," and it sort of took on a life of its own. It helped that we had a 20-foot yellow inflatable kangaroo in front of our booth. Yeah, literally. That's Larry the kangaroo. Yeah. In like literally in front of our booth, people were tripping over its tail and it's whatever. It's like whatever. But yeah, look, Bourbon Fest was great. I felt like this year they really got their ducks in a row insofar as the media and promotion and dealing with the influence. Like you would know, Randall, the influencers are really now, and the podcasters are really becoming you don't read Whiskey Advocate anymore to get your, information on bourbon or whiskey. You listen to podcasts like like this, you listen to, or you follow them on Instagram, you follow, all that stuff. And for a little company like us that's just sort of starting out, and every other small company, it's a terrific channel, and it's a great opportunity, because if people like your stuff, they'll start talking about it, and it gets out there. And we've been pretty blessed right now to have a sort of a groundswell of support since the Bourbon Festival. And I would encourage anyone, if you're on the fence about going or whatever, try and make the effort. It's like, it's not cheap, when you bring in travel and hotels and all that stuff, but it's amazing. It's such a great weekend, and I wouldn't miss it for the world.
Okay. So I'm going to say it right now. I'm going to try to go next year, and hopefully we'll meet up and we'll share a dram together. And not that we haven't already, and it's been amazing. But yeah, no, to me, all those festivals are basically, because we have a big one here in Texas as well, called the Texas Whiskey Festival. It's pretty obvious, but but it's all.
Were you involved in the marketing of that name?
I was not. I was not. I should have been, but but it's all Texas distilleries, so that's kind of cool. But but the thing is, it's all about the camaraderie, and it's all about showcasing. Like, you have the #1 brand in Texas over here showcasing this brand that has 3 bottles out on the shelf. That's it, and these is 2 barrels that they've made. Like, they're barely keeping the lights on, and you have big distilleries showcasing these little guys, like Wild Turkey's doing with you guys, sending people over to your distillery and saying, hey, go check them out. They don't have to do that. They don't have to. They don't
do it as well.
Right. So these are big brands that could use all of the money. They use all of the money. They don't need to give any of it out, right? And for a bourbon enthusiast like myself, and I'm sure you are as well, like, we want to try everything, right? That's why we have the collection and we do the things, right? But at the same time, we want to support people who are doing cool stuff. And I feel, and this is just, it might be biased because you brought me whiskey, and that's fine, but I feel like you guys are doing really cool stuff with really cool whiskey, and you have a cool story. You have all the things that matter in the whiskey world. You're not, I mean, I hope this doesn't happen. You're not selling out to another company. You're not doing the things that everybody thinks about in the 5-year game or 10-year game, and you're trying to be as legit as possible. And that, to me, shows a lot of favor, obviously, and it shows your disregard for the convention, the conventional, the true Larrikin of whiskey. And
so that reminds me, one thing we do too, and I should have mentioned this before, but
okay.
On all of our bottles, you probably can't see it very well, we always put the mash bill. So,
I love that.
Coming out of the wine industry, or my parents coming out of the wine industry, you don't go and buy an expensive bottle of wine if you don't know it's, the 30% Merlot and 20% Cabernet or whatever.
Right.
And we brought that across into our bourbon, because everyone's like, oh, won't people steal your mash bill? I'm like, no. It's like, no, I don't care. They can know what the mash bill is. I think it's a nonsense that all these companies that hide their proprietary mash bill, and unless it's something pretty unique,
right?
I think that's just ridiculous. But that's me. I mean, I've been in the business for like 2 minutes, so what do I know? But
right, exactly.
That's something we will always keep doing.
I and for us nerds, and I consider myself one of them, we really appreciate it, because it's one of those things where, like, we don't care. It tastes good. I don't care. But at the end of the day, I'm like, I can taste the corn in that, or I can taste in that rye. I can actually taste the wheat in that, and so it's one of those things where, like, all of us nerds are like, okay, so this is what the wheat in that rye tastes like. Okay, so then we jot it down, and we know the next time we try something with that, we can kind of compare, contrast from this bottle to this bottle, but it's all about the manufacturing. You guys are never going to make whiskey that can be sold at Old Forester because you're not Old Forester and you're not trying to be them, right? So you're trying to do you're trying to stay in your lane, do your thing. And I mean, I feel like I beat this into the ground already, but you're doing your thing well. And I feel like everybody else is doing their thing well. So you're not really competing with anybody.
No,
you're competing with yourself.
Right.
You're competing with yourself. Like you're trying to make a better product tomorrow than you made yesterday.
That's exactly 100% right. Yep.
That's it.
And I think that's why the industry has such great camaraderie and all that sort of thing. There's enough room in the pond for everybody, particularly when you're at craft level.
Right.
And, it's one of those, what's the saying, the rising tide raises all ships kind of deal. And I think it's really, really true in the bourbon industry.
It really is.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, if there's craft distilleries closing down all over the place, that doesn't help me. I'd prefer 3 to open up on our road,
Right. Right.
Because that's good for the industry. It's good for us. I genuinely could care less. I'd actually like it if one opened up next door and one opened up across the street.
Absolutely. So about 6 months ago, I was talking to somebody and I was talking about the fall of bourbon or the fall of whiskey, right? Mm-hmm. And I was saying because everything, I mean, bourbon's been kicking ass for a while, right? And it's just going up and up and up. And that's why you see all these NDPs coming in and they're just dropping bourbon. They're dropping MGP on everybody, right?
Right.
So, and I was kind of negative about it. I'm going to be 100 with you. I was kind of negative about it because I was like, is this the fall of bourbon? Is this the end of an era? Are we going to go, because then you talk about a temperance movement that's coming in where people are like abstaining from alcohol and stuff like that. And I am a forerunner of drinking responsibly and all of the things. But at the same time, like I have seen nothing but gradual growth on the bourbon market since then. So what are your thoughts on that? And then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, look, I think you touched on a number of great points there. I mean, a couple of things I will say is that I believe the fall of bourbon, blah blah blah, has been just blown up. I don't know why or by who particularly, but people have seen that. The people that go and collect all the stuff have seen that. Oh well, I can now get Eagle Rare on the shelf at wherever I can get this. So there must be too much bourbon and the arse is falling out of bourbon. No, it's a very simple calculation. Is the big guys made a shit ton of whiskey during COVID.
Yes, they did.
And they haven't sold it all. And that's kind of it insofar as, the glut of whiskey in the market. I mean, I think we're seeing some NDPs starting to see writing on the wall.
Right.
That being said, there's never been a better time in the last 5 or 6 years, 10 years to be buying barrels, because what's happened in the market is that you've had all these speculators, investors that don't really understand the industry, have taken loans for $1 million, $2 million, and gone in and bought new fill for $1,500 a barrel or $2,000 a barrel, whatever it was at the time, at the peak of the market, thinking that it was just going to keep going like that. Now, those barrels are now coming due. Their interest rate has gone from 3% to 9%, 10%. And now they're sitting on barrels that are worth half as much as they were when they bought them. So that's the other part of that glut, is all those speculators are now actually trying to get out of the market and not do their britches. So I don't think it's dire like that. When we were at the KDA annual general meeting, there was one of the folks that do all the research and stuff like that. There's this reported drop off of younger folks, Gen Z, X, Y, whatever it is,
right? Whatever it is,
yeah, that aren't drinking as much alcohol, and that's fine. But they said that the drop is minuscule in the totality of the industry, and the whiskey industry is actually standing up pretty pretty robustly compared to some of your white spirits that have sort of peaked, and tequilas and stuff. And tequilas are still huge, but
Yeah.
Maybe they've run their race, and rum will become a new thing. And I'm a big rum fan, so I hope it kind of does.
Okay. Well, that's awesome, because one of my buddies is really into rum, and he always talks about how rum is going to eventually, which he doesn't know when, is going to eventually take over whiskey. He said mainly American single malt, because American single malt, which I know you guys don't do this and you don't even, don't think about it, but
yeah.
American single malt in itself is like a bastardized term, because it's not even a term, because the TTB won't take it in, right? They won't say that American single malt is even a thing. So he thinks that rum will take over where American single malt was trying to go, but I can pretty much guarantee that, like, there's a lot of really good American single malts out there. So I don't know if your Barbados rum is going to, if they can even keep up with the demand of an American market.
We're probably going to make a dark rum with Australian sugarcane next year. There's a rum in Australia called Bundaberg, and when you grow up in in Australia or anywhere, you drink a lot of Bundaberg. When you're in the Navy, it's almost, you can't drink anything else except Bundaberg rum. And and the problem with it is, of course, it's just made of sugar. It's like sugar. And then you drink it with Coke, which is sugar. And so you have, 10 of those when you're 21 in the 100-degree sun in Australia. And I tell you what, you wake up with a headache the next day.
Absolutely.
I still love Bundy rum, and we're going to try making it, not Bundy rum, but a dark sugarcane rum.
That's awesome.
At the distillery. It'll probably be a disaster, but we're going to give it a crack.
But see, rum is really, it's not adjacent to whiskey, because it has no grain in it, right? But it's really all about, are you going to do? And I don't know if the bug rum is like where they use a Dundee or anything like that, if it's like funky rum or if it's just super clean. But you can still do the same cuts, you can do the same, barreling, you can do all of the same things and make a decent product, I think. So I'm interested in that, because I'm not a huge rum fan, I'm not a huge cognac or brandy fan or whatever. I stay in my lane. I know whiskey, so I talk about whiskey, but yeah, it intrigues me, because people always send me like rum samples, little samples of rum, and I'm like, yeah, it's good, but it's not whiskey,
Right. Yeah. And that's very true. I mean, we make gin and vodka now in-house.
Okay.
It's called Fat Wombat. Fat Wombat. Our gin is a cucumber and rose petal. We use what they call the Scottish method, or Scottish distillation, which means we put the botanicals in the actual pot, as opposed to running them through a basket.
I love that.
I think, we put the really delicate botanicals in the basket, because you can't throw rose petals in a pot. But but the juniper and anything robust will go into the pot. And I think I just like how that works. And then we have a 14 times distilled vodka, and I haven't drunk vodka in 20 years, and we ran it off the still, and everyone was at the distillery was really, really excited, and all this. They go, this is great, here, try it. I'm like, it doesn't taste like anything, it tastes like water. And they're like, that's the point.
That's the point.
And I'm like, well, what's the point of that?
Why are you drinking this?
Right. But apparently it's great vodka, and
it sounds like it.
People love it. And I'm just like, well, have at it.
Yeah. Hey, why not? All right, Greg, this has been amazing. I appreciate you coming on here. Go ahead and tell everybody where anybody can find you. Are you having any Black Friday sales? Anything like that?
No,
let us know.
Might. I don't know. Jennifer will be in charge of that.
Okay. I'll ask her.
She's in charge of everything like that. But on Instagram, if people are looking for us, we're at Larrikin Bourbon, and my personal one is at Larrikin Distiller. And our website is the same, just larrikinbourbon.com. And we just got our shop up. We've got some really good merchandise and stuff
Awesome.
with our fighting kangaroo and our Born to Fight slogan on there. But look, if anyone's listening and they're coming through Kentucky and they're on the Bourbon Trail, please do stop in. We're honest to God next to wild turkey. So if wild turkey's on your radar, go and talk to Jimmy, then pop on over and come and visit us. We promise you'll have a good time and you'll drink some good whiskey.
Absolutely. Greg, this has been amazing. I can't thank you enough. Stick on real fast. I want to talk to you after, but as always, guys, you know where to find everything that I'm doing. Please, I will have all of the Larrikin stuff down in the description below, as you well know. So go follow everything they're doing, and yeah, we'll see you on the next time. And until next time, keep your spirits up.